Hello, everybody. My name is Dan, and this is my super practicing English. And I wear a shirt like I wake because this become my coat, and this will become my sweater. And today is my birthday. I think I'll do a special thing today. Maybe I'll go to Ho Chi Minh City to buy for something, but now I have no money, so I think I just use it. I just save a little bit for the future. That rather than go into Ho Chi Minh City to bought for myself present. So it depends for everyone's thinking. So I think it just depends on everyone's thought. So let's keep uh, continue on the reading. But this book have no the title. Oh, this called the Why Death. Okay, why the book called the Why Death? Let's go with me. Chapter 1. The woman stood in front of the prison. The prison was a big, dirty building in the biggest town of a hot country. The woman was very hot, and she didn't like the noise from all the cars in the road. She was an English woman, and she didn't like countries or a lot of noise. She was tall, about 50 years old, with blue eyes and long face. Her face was red. She looked tired and angry. She knocked at the door of the prison for a long time. Nothing happened. Then a little window opened in the door. A man looked out of her. Yes, what do you want? I want to see my daughter. It's very important. Name, Anna Harland. Is that your name or your daughter's name? It's my name. My daughter's Shara Harland. You can't visit her today. Come back on Wednesday. No, I came from England to see her today. It's very important. She's going to court tomorrow. Please take me to her now. Wait a minute. A little window closed, but the door did not open. The woman waited in front of the door for a long time. A lot of people in the road looked at her. One or two young men laughed. She didn't move. She stood there in hot rod and in front of the prison door and waited. After 20 minutes, the door opened. Come with me, the man said. The woman went with them. It was dark in the prison, and at first she could not see very well. She walked for a long time, past hundreds of doors. The man opened one of them. In here, he said, you can have 10 minutes. Anna Harland walked into the room, and the man went in after her. He closed the door behind him. There was a table in the room and two chairs. One of the chairs sat her daughter, Shara. She was a tall girl, about 19 years old, with big blue eyes. Mother, she said, I'm very happy to see you. And she got up and began to run across the room to her mother. Shara, and I say, put out her arms. But the man moved quickly and stood between them. No, he said to Anna. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I know you're her mother. You can talk, but that's all. Please sit down at the table. I'm here to watch you. The mother and daughter sat down at the table. Anna's hands were nearly Sarah's on the table. She looked carefully at her daughter. Sarah's dress and face were dirty. She tired and unhappy. Anna thought, Sarah, what happened? She said, we have 10 minutes to talk, no more. Tell me, please, quickly, I want to help you. Okay, Shara looked at her mother. Oh, mother, I'm happy you're here. I wanted you to come. Mother, I didn't do it. It isn't true. Please believe me. Of course, I believe you, Shara. But tell me about it. What happened? Quickly, beginning at the beginning. Yes, but I don't know. Where did it begin in? I don't know. I don't understand it. Why did the police arrest you? Why did they bring you to prison? Last week, I think. Yes, last week at the airport. When we arrived, the police stopped us and looked looked in our bags. Then Sarah looked down the table. She cried, and I thought she's very unhappy. What happened then, Sarah? Her mother asked. They say there were drugs in my bag. Then they took me into a room and told me to take my dress off. They looked for more drugs, but they found nothing. Then, then they brought me here. I see. Where were the drugs then? Then, where did they find them? Oh, they didn't tell you. Shara stopped crying. She looked up, and there was a smile on her face, but it was not a happy smile. The drugs were in the tub of toothpaste, a toothpaste tub with drugs in it, heroin, not toothpaste, and you didn't know about it. No, mother, of course not. Do you think I cleaned my teeth with heroin? Anna Harlan smiled. It was a difficult to smile because she was afraid, but she smiled because she wanted to have her daughter. I know you don't clean your teeth with heroin. You have a very good teeth, Shara, but what about Stephen? Did you know about heroin? Did he put it in the toothpaste tube? Stephen, no. Why do you ask about Stephen, mother? Well, is she in prison too? You said us? And our bags? Did the police arrest him too? Oh no, Sarah's face wasn't happy. No, I wasn't with Stephen, mother. You see, Stephen and I, well, we aren't friends now. I left him about 2 months ago, and then I miss Hassan. Hassan? Yes, I was with Hassan at the airport. Stephen was on the plane too. I don't know why, but he wasn't with me. It's Hassan. He was with me. Hassan important to me now, not Stephen. And I look at her daughter. I see. And did the police arrest this Hassan too? Is she imprisoned? Yes, it is. They arrested him, but I can't see him. I asked them. I wanted to see him, but they said no. Mother, I'm sure Hassan didn't know about the heroin. He's a good man. He didn't know, I'm sure. Then why is the heroin in your bag, Shara? I don't know, mother. I don't know. The man looked at the clock in the room. I'm sorry, Miss Harland, he said, but that's 10 minutes. It's time to go. Anna Harland stood up slowly. All right, she said, but don't be afraid, Shara. I'm coming to the court tomorrow. Yes, mother, Shara said. Thank you. The police are bringing Hassan to court tomorrow too. I think you can see him there. He is a good man, mother, and I'm sure he didn't know about the drugs. Perhaps, Anna said. She walked slowly to the door and then stood by the door and looked at her daughter. Again, Shara, are you telling me the truth, aren't you? Shara began to cry again. Yes, mother, of course I am. I always tell you the truth. You know that? Anna smiled. Yes, Shara, she said quietly. Yes, I believe you. She went through the door and the man went out after her. Shara sat quickly at the table in the room and looked at her hands. Yet, she thought, I told you the truth, Mother. I always tell you the truth, but you didn't tell me. But you didn't tell. But I didn't tell you everything. She put her head in her hands. Chapter 2. Anna Harlan left the prison and went to talk to the police. She waited for a long time in a small office, but after an hour, a police came into the room. He was a big man, about 55 years old, with brown eyes and a nice smile. He moved very slowly and quietly. Good afternoon, Miss Harland, he said. My name is Detective Inspector Azul. I arrested your daughter 3 days ago. I'm very sorry for you. This is a very unhappy thing for a mother. It's a very unhappy thing for a daughter, Inspector, Anna said angrily, because she didn't do it. She ain't nonsense. You know, she knows nothing about those drugs. Detective Inspector Azul looked at her carefully for a minute. He did not know many English women. She has an interesting face, he thought. Very blue eyes and long nose. She's not afraid of me and she's not crying. Perhaps she wants to know the truth. Perhaps she can help me too. Well, Miss Harland, he said slowly, it's difficult for me. Is your daughter telling the truth? Is she nonsense? Because the drugs in her bag, you know? I know, Anna said, but she was with a young man, Hassan. She doesn't know him very well, I think. Tell me about him, please. I want to know. Inspector Azul smiled. All right, he said. But first, tell me about your daughter. Why was she on that land? Why did she come to the country? Tell me. Anna Harlan looked at him. He's a nice man. She thought he listened to people. Perhaps he wants to help. Perhaps she can understand Shara. Do you have daughters? She asked. Yes, Inspector answered too. Then perhaps you can understand. Anna said, Shara is 19. She finished school last year and she worked for 6 months in hospital to get some money. Then she and her boyfriend, Stephen, visited a lot of countries. They went to Greece, Turkey, India, Australia, and now they are here. They are young and they want to see new countries and new towns and new people. That's all. I see, the inspector said, but sometimes young people do bad things because they are in different country and they need money. Not Shara, Anna said, and not heroin. Shara worked in a hospital and she knows about heroin. She knows it can kill people. I'm a doctor and she wants to be a doctor too. I see, the inspector said again. He looked at her and thought, but he said nothing. Now, Anna, tell me about this young man, Hassan. All right, the inspector said. He took some papers from the table and began to read to her. But we don't know very much about him. He's a rich boy from a good family. His father has 2 or 3 shops, I think, and the police in his town know him too. Last year, his father gave him a new car, a very fast car, and listen to this. One day he hit a police car, and the police car went into the river. What a story! His father brought a new car for the police. His father had a lot of money. The inspector smiled, but Anna looked unhappy. Oh dear, she said. That's not very good. No, he said. It isn't good, but this story about heroin is worse, much worse. I don't like this story. Chapter 3. Next morning, Anna Harland went to the court. She was first there. She sat in the courtroom and waited. A lot of people came in, and she saw a man with his wife, perhaps their husband, father, and mother. Anna thought, but she didn't want to talk to them. The lawyers came in next with a lot of papers. They sat at a table in front of her and talked quietly. Those two lawyers, Anna thought, they're all friends, but one of them wants my daughter to die, and one wants her to be free. After, after the lawyers, the jury came in, 12 people, men and women. They sat down and watched the lawyers. They looked at La Anna and they talked quietly about her. These people don't look very important, she thought, but they are the most important people here. They're going to say she did it or she didn't do it. Then Sarah come home with me or she dies. She watched their faces carefully. Then some policemen came in. Inspector Azusa Anna and smiled at her, but Anna did not talk to him because Sarah came in at the same time. She looked afraid and her face was very white. She looked across the courtroom and saw her mother and gave her a happy smile. There were two policemen behind Sarah, but Anna did not look at them. She looked at the dark young man next to Sarah, Hassan. He's about 20 years old, and I thought he's tall, but he has a nice face and very beautiful dark eyes. Sarah likes him, and I can't understand that, but he looks very unhappy too, and afraid. His hands are moving all the time. Hassan looked at Sarah and smiled. She smiled back at him, and I wanted to talk to Sarah, but just then a policeman said loudly, "On stand, please." Everybody stood up, and the judge came into the courtroom. He went to his chair and sat down. The police lawyer began. "These two young people came into our country last week," he said. "The young man lives in this country and the young woman is English." At the airport, the police looked in their bags and they found three tubes of toothpaste. These tubes of toothpaste. He had 3 tubes in his hand, and he looked at them. Everybody could see them. "But there are tubes of toothpaste?" he asked. "No, man and woman of the jury, there are not." "Oh no, there is no toothpaste in the tubes. There is heroin in them." "Yes, the heroin, a bad, dirty drug, perhaps the worst drug. People die from these drugs. The white dye they call, perhaps £80,000, £80,000 easy money, and men and women of the jury, many people in the country, young people, school children too, take these drugs. At first it is exciting and they feel happy, but then we need more and more heroin, and they need more money to buy the drugs. They leave their homes and families. They take more heroin and more. They can't stop. Soon the drugs begins to kill them, and in the end they die. The why death. It is not a quick death. It is not an easy death. Yes, men and women of the jury, many young people and children, your children and my children, remember, die because of this drug. The lawyer stopped again. The jury watched him and waited. "He's very good," Anna thought. "Very, very good. He's telling the jury an exciting story, and they like him, but isn't good for Sarah." The lawyer walked across the courtroom and stood up in front of the jury. But my friends, he said to the jury, we have a law in this country, and the law is not difficult to understand. When people bring heroin into this country, they bring death too. We need to stop these people. And how we can do that? The answer is easy. The law is for these people is death. The lawyer walked back in his table. Now please look at these young people here in this court, he said to the jury. They brought heroin into this country. The airport police are going to tell you about it. Please listen carefully. It's not a long story, and remember, the law is death. The police lawyer sat down. An important policeman went to the front of the court. Anna fell ill. She looked at Sarah. Sarah was white-faced and very afraid. Anna closed her eyes. Sarah, she thought, oh, Sarah. The police lawyer stood up again. Please tell the court about Sarah Harlan and Hassan, he said to the airport policeman. Yes, sir, said the policeman. I found 2 tubes of toothpaste in the girl's bag and one of the tubes in the young man's bag. On 3 tubes had heroin in them. Thank you. The police lawyer sat down, and Mr. Chen, Sarah's and Hassan's lawyer stood up. What did Sarah Harlan say when you found the heroin? He asked. Nothing, sir. She began to cry. I see. Was she afraid? The policeman thought for a minute. I don't know, sir. Perhaps she was. Yes. And she said nothing. Are you sure? The policeman thought again. Well, yes, sir. I think perhaps this isn't my toothpaste, and this is all wrong. I see. What about the young man, Hassan? What did he say? Well, sir, he's very angry. He said, not heroin. That's not true. You put it there. I see. Thank you. Now tell me, why did you look in this bag to two young people's bag? You don't usually look in everyone's bags. There's isn't time. The policeman talked again. Well, no, sir, we don't. I'm afraid I can't tell you, sir. What did you say? Mr. Chen asked very angrily. Of course, you can't tell me. This is a court of law. He's looked at the judge. This is a very important question. We need an answer. The judge looked at the airport policeman. I'm sorry, he said. Please answer the questions. The court needs to know the answer. Yes, sir. Well, you see, there's a telephone call. Someone phoned me before the plane arrived. The telephone caller said, there's some heroin on the plane. A young man and a young woman are carrying it. I see. Mr. Chen said. He smiled. That's very interesting. And who mailed this phone call? I don't know, the policeman said. It was a man, and he talked in English. I don't know his name. Suddenly, Anna heard a noise. She looked behind her at the door of the courtroom. A tall young man came into the back of the room. Anna knew him at once. It was Stephen, Sarah's old boyfriend. A policeman took him to a chair near Anna. He saw Anna, and for a second he looked afraid. But then he smiled. He sat down next to her. Mr. Harlan, he said quietly, it's good to see you. When did you arrive? Yesterday, she said. Were you late? I couldn't find court, he answered. He looked very unhappy. Tell me about your help, he said. I want to help Sarah, but what can I do? I was on the plane too, but I couldn't help her. I don't want her to die. Stay with me, young man. Anna said quietly. We can help her. I'm sure we can. Later that morning, Sarah went to run off the courtroom. Her face was very white, and her eyes began to red with crying. Her lawyer, Mr. Chen, began to ask her question. Now, Miss Harlan, why did you come to this country? He asked quietly and smiled at her. Because because I like going different countries. I want to meet new people. Why were you with this young man? Because Sarah stopped and looked down at her feet. Nobody could see her face. She began again very quietly, but nobody could hear her. I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Can you say that again, please? Sarah looked up. She looked quickly at her mother and then at Hassan. Because I love him. Anna felt old and tired. She looked at the tall young man with beautiful dark eyes. It were with it were his heroine. It was his heroine, she thought. I'm sure it was. He buys and sells heroin, and he put it in my daughter's bag, and now she says she loves him. Stephen sat next to her. He did not move, and he watched Sarah all the time, but she did not look at him. Mr. Chen waited a minute, and then he questioned Sarah again. Did you know about heroin, those tubes of toothpaste? He asked. No, Sarah said quickly. Of course I didn't. What about Hassan? Did he know about the heroin? Please think about your answer. No, I'm sure he didn't know. It wasn't our heroin. Sarah Blue's eyes were angry. We didn't put the heroin in toothpaste tubes. We're innocent. Thank you, Miss Harland. Mr. Chen said quietly and sat down. The police lawyer stood up. Miss Harland, how much money did you have in your bags? About £50, I think. That's not very much. This is an expensive country, you know. How much you can buy with your £50? Sarah did not answer. But I don't know, she began. I usually live very cheaply. Did you need more money? The lawyer questions came quickly now. Of course, you needed more money. You wanted to sell that heroin. You wanted to be rich. Is that right? No, that's not true. The lawyer said nothing for a minute. He looked at the jury and smiled. Then he said, do you think toothpaste is very expensive in this country, Miss Harlan? No, I don't think. I don't know. Well, I can tell you, it isn't. Toothpaste is cheap here. Why did you bring 3 tubes of toothpaste with you? How often do you clean your teeth, Mr. Harlan? 6 times a day, or 7, or 8 times a day, perhaps? Sarah looked very unhappy. No, I don't know, Hassan. Yes, the lawyer said quickly. Hassan, are you going to say Hassan gave it to me? You love this young man, but you don't want to die. Nobody wants to die. And you going to say it was Hassan toothpaste. Is that your answer, Mr. Harlan? No, Sarah said quite angrily. Of course not. It was my toothpaste, but thank you, Miss Harlan. The police lawyer sat down. I have no more questions. And I think tomorrow I keep continuing reading this book, The White Fat. So today I think this is enough, and until next time, bye.